Are you in?
I got it. That's all good. Like it.
So, I do have to talk about going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I went a couple weeks
This
ago.
is perfect.
First time in my life.
All right.
I had some reservations about it just because I didn't know what all encompassed, and it's just a museum, right?
Pretty big.
No, it's quite robust actually. So there's a lower level, and they have so much of history and memorabilia. You know, they start way back in even the 50s, finding music from all genres that cropped up into rock and roll music, and it went through so many artists. And I think my favorite thing, now to preface this, I went on a private event that my company was holding, so we got all access to the museum, as well as I got to take a alcoholic beverage with me around the whole time.
Oh,
so
wow. That made things a little better.
it was really nice because they had like
You usually don't get to do that? They don't let you do that?
not that I am aware of.
That makes sense, though, because you can't have Joe Schmo over there walking around with his
they're
Jack and Coke spilling it everywhere.
yeah, they're adamant about no red wine and no like cranberry.
That makes sense.
Because if you spilt it on anything, then they'd be in trouble.
Stain.
But I was drinking vodkas all
Bud
night.
Light, you can spill it on whatever, man.
Go for it, man. So, but what was my favorite part, because I could have a drink with me, was going to the section where you can listen to all the artists who have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. You can read their bios in the little music booth and learn a little bit something. So I learned about Boston. Boston, the Hooked on a Feeling.
Mm-hmm. No, More Than a Feeling.
More Than a Feeling, sorry.
Good song, though. Hooked on a Feeling.
More Than a Feeling, that's like it. That's Boston.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
But like the lead singer has like patented so many electronics in the music industry.
That's the guitar player.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember his name now, but yeah.
He has such an influence in the electronics
For sure, no.
of music.
He was a genius.
That it's just crazy that a one-hit wonder, we'll say, could be so overlooked for his other accomplishments.
I can't remember what that guy's name is now that you were talking about this. I know the singer's name is Brad Delp, and he actually killed himself.
Ooh.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No, I don't know about Boston.
Yeah, so I don't know a lot about him, but yeah, he killed himself actually in a pretty morbid way too. He put a grill, like a charcoal grill, in a bathroom with him. From what I heard, I'm pretty sure I read this and somebody told me too as well, and suffocated himself through the.
Smoked himself out?
It's pretty nasty, huh? But anyway, man, probably one of the greatest singers of that era, I would think. He had one of the most iconic voices. I would think, him and Freddie Mercury out of that time.
Yeah.
If you think about songs, that, like you said, out of that time. If I think about my dad, I think about Boston, More Than the Feeling. So in the 70s, that was Tom Schultz. Sorry, was the guitar player's name.
Tom Schultz.
Yeah, Tom Schultz. But no, he was a genius, man. Actually, speaking of that, I watched a lot of like mini documentaries, or this was probably about 10 minutes long, but they talked about how he got his signature sound, and they showed his studio and like all the stuff that he mixed together and just trials and tribulations that he'd go through. And back then, nobody heard a sound like that. That was like revolutionary for the music world. That was very heavy and melodic at the same time. And then those crazy solos to where they were like layering the guitars over each other. And once they figured out how to do that, it was kind of like over with for him. He was. Yeah, he was. Once they figured out how to do that, then it was off to the races.
And what's funny enough is the piano player for the Doors.
Mm-hmm.
That guy also was like a prophet in like understanding where music was going, like synthesized music, sampling a sound. He was thinking about that in the 70s as well, the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, that was in the late 60s.
Because the Doors, they were just so high on acid, right?
Oh yeah, dude, they were.
But their ideas of what could be, he realized that multi-layering tracks was the next generation.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until you got to like the Beatles. The Beatles were at a time when they were single track, like they recorded on records, but then they got to the multi-track portion of their career,
yeah,
and they did some weird stuff with music.
for sure.
But it shows what could have been done,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so they were pushing the boundary as well. But it was foreseen back in the '60s by certain people. But yeah, this guy from Boston, way ahead of his time.
Oh yeah, man, just incredible, right?
More than a feeling is more than just one song. It's
Well, I mean,
awesome.
man, if you've ever really listened to Boston, I would say go get, greatest hits first, but then like dive a little deeper into it. But they have, I mean, I can name Foreplay, man. It's one of the cool songs, and if you hear it, you'll know what it is. And I know it sounds kind of a crazy name.
I mean,
But man, they had a couple of good hits, that like I can't name it off the top of my head. But if you hear it, you know exactly. Long time. I think Long Time and Foreplay are the same thing. They go in together. I think Foreplay is the instrumental version of, because they list the song as Foreplay / Long Time, and the song is like, it's been such a long time, think I should be going. That song. So, I mean, like, there's certain songs like you hear on a movie and you're like, oh man, that belongs like right there in that movie, and you recognize it from that movie, right? Like I was jamming a song the other day and I was like, I remember it from watching that movie, and I never even knew I knew it. But I think, like I said, those are songs like you said, those are songs that like define a generation. You hear that song and you're like, damn, that is the 70s, man,
Yeah.
And even though defining that generation, they were ahead of that time. And back when like that happened, like when somebody heard that on the radio first, they were like, "What in the hell is this, dude?" It probably blew their minds,
Not only did it blow their minds, but it was so good that they wanted to hear it again, but they couldn't do it on demand.
Yeah, that probably drive us
wait
nuts, right?
for another hour for them to like do the rotation.
Well, they can't even press the record button on the tape, right? Like they literally could not. They had to call the DJ.
Play it again.
They had to call the Wolfman.
Wolfman, play it again.
Fucking Wolfman.
Play that motherfucking song again because it
I didn't know he was like a real thing.
melted my brain.
I thought it was a joke, like off a movie. And my dad was like, "No, we used to call the Wolfman."
Well, no,
Who's that?
there's always like a tag team. There's like the cool guy.
Oh
and then,
my
and then
God.
the guy with the weird voice.
He's talking about
every
that's always-
radio, every good major city.
They did that on Always Sunny. I can't remember the name of it though. Yeah, but no, you're serious. They always have like.
There's a straight man and
Yeah.
then the weird man. He's got a animal name.
What is
I'm the
that?
snapping turtle.
Snapping turtle.
Big Johnny D. I'm the snapping turtle.
That look out there.
He's got to calm the animal down. He gets out of hand
The
sometimes.
bulldog, That was Frazier. John Boy and Billy, that was one of the ones that were up where I'm from. Good Lord.
We had
The Q Crew. No, I'm just kidding. Oh no.
we had like John and the Whipping Boy.
See, exactly.
But
That's nuts. But no, so going back on onto that, talking about iconic bands. I guess we should probably start off with this guy, Elvis, because we were talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Was he in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
yeah, he's definitely got a section in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I'm about to say.
And what was really incredible to me was they had a selection of his books that he would carry around with him and read like on the road.
See, I guess I never would have thought about it, but I mean, Elvis, like, you don't think of him a reader, you know what I mean? Like, you think of him as like being high on pills and
doing karate.
yes.
And I didn't think it either because
But there's probably so much more to him than we'll ever know,
and looking back in his time, what better way to get information?
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean,
He was
Encyclopedia Britannica.
he was recording records, which was the new way of reaching mass audiences. Right?
And he had a big gap too. Like, when I say gap, like he went from the 50s, like he created rock and roll. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't know about that back then. It's him and who, Jerry Lee Lewis banging on the
Jerry
damn
Lewis,
piano, and
Chuck Berry.
what's the Little Richard? He was crazy.
Richard, yeah.
But like, you know, nobody knew about that music back then. You know.
No, it took everyone by storm, and so yeah. What amazed me, first of all, that Elvis can read, but it also made me think like, look, this is the only source of information he has. What if he's one of those kind of people who like reads on the shitter because it's a great time for you to read? And I'm like, oh shit, the stories of him dying on the toilet maybe wasn't so bad because maybe he had a book in his hand. I don't know.
Well, statistically, I heard a lot of people die on the toilet because like, what happens is they can't get up because they sit down. No, seriously.
Oh, it's so comfortable.
Yeah, when they get up
So
and they're so
comfortable.
old, they can't get up. They can't, you know, they sit down, they can't get up. You know.
I'm with my grandpa. So comfortable. Just do what's comfortable. But no, so there are a handful of books that. So actually, Elvis hand wrote notes in his own books. So I mean, just like you would think an artist would do.
That actually is pretty cool, man. I wonder how much does it work. Anyway.
Pulling lyrics and all that stuff. And so here's the kicker. I saw this display when I was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I'm like, I really want to take a picture of this, but I want to be respectful of the museum because, you know, people pay money to see this.
Yeah. So you don't want to post it on social media.
Yeah. So I didn't take a picture. I didn't write anything down, but it stayed on my mind, like even as I came home. And so I called. I called the museum and I said, is there anyone who can tell me the list of books that is in the Elvis Presley section of the museum? You know, I had to like get in touch with some archivists, but he read me off a list of what they had.
That's pretty cool.
And then he informed me, he's like, you know,
I bet that dude loved when you called too. He's probably like lonely and
oh
shit.
man, he had something to do.
Hey, I'm on call.
He was, yeah,
I'm not busy.
He was very excited about. He was so excited about like having a chore.
Yeah, for sure.
But then he was like, you know, Elvis carried like 200 books with him, like all the time, like next to the Bible, like the book The Prophet was like his second favorite.
What's that even about?
I don't know that book, The Prophet. It's one for me to look into, but I believe it's a spiritual book.
Yeah.
That helps you see your true self in that, you know, the real wealth is in our health. It's not in our piggy banks.
We talked about that the other day.
It's how we treat the world around us and how we take care of those who are in our lives.
Yeah.
Whether you know we are a burden or we want to take care of them. It's just making your world a better place for everyone around you.
I mean, and Elvis sure as hell did that, man. I mean,
and that's where
people like. I mean, he's an icon, obviously, but like I said, I grew up in my mom's family anyway. I mean, he might as well have been part of the family.
Yeah, I mean, he was practically Jesus of mine.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's just incredible because you know his collection of books is really in his hometown, Graceland. So they told me I can contact the museum there, and they could probably give me more resources on all of the books he counts. That'd be an extensive library, but I thought it was really interesting that they picked spiritual books from Elvis, because, you know, Elvis, a Bible-loving Christian, spreading the word of his religion, that's debatable, his actions and whatnot, but there was definitely there in it. Like, when you hear him talk, he has a genuine heart.
oh yeah.
You know,
well, like I was saying before, I mean, I've heard the guy just bought Cadillacs for people. You know, I'm just. Like you said, obviously money was not an object to him because he had so much of it. You know, he would just, but he was, like you said, for somebody to become that famous, he's about more than money. He did stuff because of the passion, right? You know what I mean? Like, and he was obviously the first of his generation to do something like that, but he is a very, very interesting character, man. Like, when it comes to, like, you know, we were listening to Joe Rogan earlier about just, he was the first of his kind. Like he how do you know how to act? You know what I mean? Like, there was not, he was before the Beatles. So that stuff before him, it was like jazz. You know, you didn't see the crowds going crazy when this dude's up there shaking his hips, right? Like, it was very taboo back then. I know we look at it now from like
being desensitized.
Yes, I mean, there's you can't go to sex is everywhere now, but back then in the 50s, like,
shake your hips like
hidden.
that.
Yeah,
shaking your hips like that is a dangerous thing to spread to the world. It's spreading love. It's what the Beatles warned about. Is this disease called love?
Well, his is more even like, and it's more to me. The Beatles was kind of like, I don't know what you want to call it, like a psychedelic love. You know what I mean? They weren't up there humping the air like Elvis was. Like, what else do you know? What else does that mean, right? You know what else? I mean, it means what it means. It means.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but I mean, the Beatles were more of love one another.
For sure.
And Elvis was like, look what I can do.
I'm fixing to bang your ass. Is what he was talking about.
He was like, watch your ass, because here it comes.
Yeah.
Mama. Judo.
No,
I call that judo.
Get out of the way.
You know, he was dangerous. Those pelvic thrusts, those are dangerous, especially for the time and what it insinuated, because, yeah, no one had seen anything like that. And what are they going to do, put that in magazines and newspapers? That would, like...
They said that they, like, actually,
people.
like, blocked them off. Like, they wouldn't put the camera on a certain, level. But there was a lot of stuff that went on TV back then, dude. Like, that was when TV was first starting to get its footing, too, right? Like, there was a lot of hidden magic that went on behind the scenes, like we talk about doing even these videos and stuff, like on how, stuff you don't see behind the scenes, where, perception or whatever is everything in that point. You showed me that little picture of the black and white thing. It looked like two people stabbing each other, and it was the two people.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing when we do these videos. I mean, you're capturing a moment in time, and nobody really knows. Like, you could capture it, and people might think you're there on Saturday, but you're there on, you're there last week, and you put it out. You know what I mean? Like, it's, the movies are what the movies are, right? They're movies for a reason.
Right.
Right,
Right.
But even, going back to, the Elvis, like, when they would record him, they even portrayed him, like, to try to be something that he wasn't, too, like, they wouldn't let him be his full self as far as not just the shaking the hips, but even, like, didn't want him to get away from a certain genre of music,
Yeah.
It was a weird deal. It was a good documentary. I mean, it's a bunch of documentaries on Elvis.
I'm sure. I haven't seen many. I have a song, "Burnin' Love," on my Spotify, and it's one of his most iconic. But what I read into the lyrics and the background behind it, and it's one of the songs he hated the most.
Exactly. So that's how most of this goes. Right? He thought it was going to be a flop.
Yeah, and look, I can imagine being an artist, and you get bored creatively that you just make up a song, right? And you put it out there.
Yeah.
But what happens when that terrible song becomes your hit?
You have to play it every fucking night.
You have to play it not only every fucking night, like while you're hot,
yeah,
but for the rest of your living days.
You're gonna be known for
when you have to go to Vegas to do your reunion tour. Fuck, I have to play this song.
He's probably looking down from the heavens above, going, these fuckers.
It's like a mistake every time he plays it.
Why can't you, like, love me tender?
And if you've ever seen Elvis in his later years, when he's carrying the weights, doing those shows, like getting down on one knee, like it's a chore.
I forgot about that, yeah.
And,
See, I like to remember my Elvis and the 68 comeback special with the leather jacket, and he was up there with his boys, and he was actually looked good, and I guess why I remember that so much, it's funny how the brain works. Because I remember watching commercials when I was young, so like, the late 80s, and that coming on, and people were like, the nostalgic was going on then, right? Like 68 special out on video, order it from wherever fucking you would order it from back then, when you'd have to call and wait for somebody to pick up, an actual human, to pick up, and you'd fucking call and talk to them. And
right.
But anyway, that's how I like to remember my Elvis. Like, I don't like to remember him when he was singing fucking Unchained Melody and he's sweating goddamn balls off and like he's about to croak then.
Oh yeah, I mean, but
chin hanging off all kind of ways.
It's the same thing with Bing Crosby and those guys. They never changed their look so dramatically. Elvis was the first public guy.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, he was
very
almost
public.
unrecognizable.
He's very public, but the power of the TV. Look, the government realized that TV is a great way to get information out. But if everyone sees it, they're going to believe a certain narrative. And this is where people debate, did we walk on the moon.
Man, we're finna get deep.
When we claim we did, we can table that.
I bet
for
you
a
it'd be
moment.
harder to fake than it actually would be to go to the moon. Those when we were talking about the other day.
No, exactly. Like bites in time, right?
Yeah.
But you see Elvis in like such sad shape. You're like, look, this guy's been a real positive influence for these reasons, and he's been a negative influence for these reasons. Do we keep him or do we cancel on Elvis? And so the conspiracy theorists want to say, the government killed Elvis for whatever reason.
See, I've never heard that. I've never really went into conspiracy theories about. I like them, but I've never really went into them about Elvis.
But it happened, so many things around that time because Elvis shaking his hips on TV, then staying in music. You had the Beatles.
Yeah.
Just coming to America was
Yeah.
such a big deal. But then going to what this country has been through. So you have Martin Luther King, marching on the country, and then being shot, like being assassinated.
Yeah, being killed. Yeah.
And then
Kennedy got
and then
assassinated
Kennedy
too.
being
Yeah.
assassinated.
That was right around the same time.
And then even later years, seeing rockets
Well,
go
same
up.
decade at least.
Yeah. But the information you see on TV becoming fact because it's the only source of information.
The war going, Vietnam War, that was one of the first really
televised
war,
wars. And that brought so much information to the American people that they finally got to decide, is this a good idea for us to be in this war?
Yeah.
And they realized that by sharing so much information, it's not in the best interest because we had riots, you had all those college students acting up, people getting killed stateside, people refusing to go to the war. I mean, it wasn't in the government's best
I remember
interest.
that. That was at Kent State.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
And now, if you think about it, they don't show much about the war ever on TV, but yet we're still actively in wars.
Yeah, for sure.
But they don't update you unless you're watching something specific about the world events.
And it's almost like, it's kind of like we're used to it, and I know it's sad, but ever since 9/11, we've kind of just been over there, right?
We're desensitized to it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, if we've been over there since always, hard to get over.
But no, man, Elvis, yeah, dude, like, I mean, we can go on and on about that guy. We probably could have a whole podcast on Elvis and what he, like, meant to, like, just the American people in general, you know what I mean? And it's kind of a weird thing, right? If you, like, dive deep down into it, like, I don't know if I've ever been obsessed, like, with a musician like that, like, in our, because everything, it's hard to, you'll never recreate Elvis because that was such an iconic change in times, right?
Yeah.
People started, it wasn't that smooth jazz or the country or the big bands anymore, right? You're starting to come out because that was all the 40s stuff. If you listen to it before then, it was stuff like my granddad used to listen to, big bands. I don't know any of the names, but it's jazz bands, right? Not a lot of singing, not a lot of acoustic guitar playing. And then once they figured out about the electric guitar, that's when the instruments started changing, right? So you started going away from the jazz bands.
Right.
And then you started going into rock, which was once you figured out how to amplify the guitar, then the guitar started becoming the lead instrument instead of instruments like saxophones or clarinets or those high instruments. Now you can, really wail on a guitar, which it used to be a background instrument. You had that guy sitting there looking like a goofball playing the guitar in the back of this huge ass band, But that's kind of where the transition came from.
No, exactly. When I was back in the museum, I watched this video on Jimi Hendrix.
Mm-hmm.
Jimi Hendrix made that guitar make noises that no one could fathom.
For sure.
At the time. And Jimi Hendrix was an opening act for years. He was just an opening act.
I didn't know that.
No, and so with an opening act, it's a small crowd that gets there and they linger in.
Yeah, yeah.
No one goes there for the opening act.
Yeah, they're just there to buy time. Yeah.
But he would do what Jimi Hendrix did night in and night out, and he just didn't have the influence because he couldn't get a grand scale. But he was getting to the point where he was opening for people like the Beatles, and they're looking at him like, this guy can play. Like, my word, like, have you checked out your opening act? He's incredible.
He's gonna blow your main act off the water before they even get on the stage.
Right, and so they had to literally like put him in a position where he's getting more eyes on him, because again, at the time we didn't have social media, we didn't have access to like look at these things. You had to go to the show, you had to go to a Beatles show, and they'll say, "Hey, we have this guy Jimi Hendrix. You should really listen to him." Okay. And then you hear like, whoa, that did something in my brain that's
Yeah,
never
yeah.
happened ever.
Yeah.
Oh, and now here are the Beatles. This is the greatest night of my life. So information spread slowly
For sure.
because you only had the public to impress.
Or you read the articles in the newspaper or wherever the journal, music journal was back then, or whatever you want to call it, you know.
Right, and now this is why we're
Magazines.
currently living in the greatest time of
I
always.
think so, for sure.
We have access to information freely, at our fingertips whenever we want.
Anything.
Anything besides a few other countries, like we can't access stuff from China, and vice versa. I'd like to open that up in the future because I think if we collaborated as a world, we would get further. But hey, our governments are stepping in.
I don't ever think that'll ever happen though, man. Just because people are always like power hungry and shit, you know, and they're nobody. I mean, it happens to us. And like even like if you get when you get enough people together, it's always going to be some conflict.
It's very tribal.
I mean? Yeah,
we're always going to be tribal.
I mean, because I train 60 people a day, and I think at least twice I disagree with somebody on what they're saying. You know what I mean? That's just 60 people. You know what I mean? At least twice a day.
No, and you can't agree with everyone, but it's not until we realize that there's an external threat to us, like if the president, the dictators, the people in charge of planet Earth told us that there was a threat of aliens, we would all, as a people, turn our focus onto those aliens.
Well, that happened somewhat in I guess it was the 30s. It was for TV.
Radio.
Maybe it wasn't the 30s. Maybe it wasn't that early. But whenever World of Worlds came out, man.
On the radio broadcast.
Yes, dude. Like, that was fucking crazy, wasn't it? Like, people were, like, freaking out and shit.
Yeah, he creeped people out because he threatened to an actual event that they couldn't distinguish if it was real or fake because radio was the word of God.
Well, if they put it on TV, like, and they, like, all these Fox News stations, like, came out and showed, like, 90-foot tall aliens walking around, we'd believe it.
Exactly. We'd have to. Because the TV told us.
I mean, we'd have to walk outside and see, but, I mean, at that point, would you even want to walk outside?
And now it's becoming the same thing with the internet. Well, the internet told me.
Yeah.
I saw it on the internet.
That's why you gotta be careful what you look for.
And this is crazy. So, you and I grew up in a time when, in high school, we had to compete with Wikipedia. Wikipedia was the encyclopedia of the internet. But I remember I had English teachers tell me I could not cite Wikipedia as a source because the information is invalid. And that's true because it's crowdsourcing the knowledge of people.
Yeah, anybody could say something. Anybody go in there and write it.
You're assuming the information's true, but yeah.
Well, now they even have YouTube channels called Facts versus Wikipedia. I even watched a couple of them because I'm curious too. Because I read Wikipedia sometimes when I'm like, you know, on planes. I don't know why I'm a weird guy, but like the only time I really ever read Wikipedia is like I'll download a bunch of them off plane when I'm on a plane and read it. I do. There's a book called Work Like You're on a Plane. You ever been on a plane for like 4 hours? You get so much fucking work done because you don't have nothing else to do. You're trying to like occupy your mind, right? Other than the fact this fucker might go down if this pilot's been drinking.
That's funny. I actually read this interesting thing. So the CEO, he could justify the cost for him to run his business.
Uh-huh.
It was cheaper for him to buy a flight to Europe to get that dedicated time to work.
It kind of makes sense.
And then get back.
Yeah.
And that dedicated time on the flight, he would solve his work problems.
Man, I've gotten so much work done on planes. I think I don't even draw that much anymore, but I've like drawn whole pages of things, like just doodled, you know. I remember this little kid was sitting beside me one time. He's like, "Damn, dude, that's badass." I mean, I don't think he said badass, but I was like, I know. I was like, I don't ever do this, but if I'm on a plane I think I was going to California. If I'm on a plane for 4 hours, man, I'll just work like crazy because I'm trying to take my mind off. Like I said, the fact I can't sleep. Every little fucking bump, hell no, dude. Every little bump I feel, dude, what was that?
See,
I'm a control freak when it comes to that. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm cushy.
You definitely got to give me some, dude. If I ever had to go to Europe or somewhere, you got to give me some Xanax, dog. You got to knock me out.
Man, see, I'm cushy because I grew up flying planes. Riding in planes, but being able to sleep on a plane. It's fantastic.
Well, you get used to it, I'm sure. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't fly a lot, so.
But what I do like about planes is right now there's no like free internet. So
Oh, I know.
so if you want to get like productivity done, you can work on a plane as long as your battery lasts.
Yeah.
You know, and just go to town, and that's great. What's funny is like I flew with my boss recently, and I realized he downloads movies and he watches movies because he spends out. We had a 3-hour flight.
Yeah.
Oh, just watch a movie.
Yeah, good
and that's
movie
it.
is
That's
fun.
his downtime.
Yeah.
Is just when he travels because he is always working every other time. Like
So that's probably the only time he ever gets to watch movies. when he's on a
exactly.
plane.
So because I get emails from him in the middle of the night. I mean, the dude's always working, but when he's on a flight, he finds a way to unplug and just be detached from the world. So I mean, everyone uses it differently.
For
you
sure.
know, and
But I think that book had a good theory is like work like you're on a plane. You know, I thought that was really cool because like there's certain things people whether it be watching movies or like my case like just doing anything to take my mind, reading. You know, I can hardly even listen to music because I can't shut off like that. Like I have to be like going. I know it's weird, right? You know.
yeah. Have you ever heard of binaural beats?
Mm-mm.
It's an auditory stimulant where you put in your head earbuds, and it gives you 2 different frequencies at different levels, and it hits your brain, and your brain takes them on these 2 different levels and tries to like match, and so what it does is it puts your brain in this working habit, and so you can use it for focus, you can use it for sleep, you can use it for meditation. But it just runs in the background kind of, and so I use that when I'm working so I can focus. And funny enough, I had a coworker of mine, he wanted to block out the noise, so I got him set up with this app I use. It's called Brain FM. And he uses science to get your brain in the right wavelength, literally, to either work on a task or to take your mind off things. So
That's pretty good though, man. Like, because I do have a problem with like shutting off even at night, man. Because I'm just a wound up person in general. And then you get off work and you go train, for especially martial arts. You got to get like in the zone, right?
oh yeah.
And it's hard to shut my brain down, man. And sometimes literally I go off like 4 hours of sleep. And I mean, I'm okay. I feel fine. But then again, sometimes I'm like, damn, man, like I need to rest. I need to figure out a way to like shut my brain off at night. And I've heard a lot of people having like, problems like that. Like just having like the peace of mind even to shut it off and like forget about, like I guess like we were talking about before on like clearing your desk type of thing, making it a new day. I need to get into more of that, But talking about planes, talking about musicians, man, how much, man, and all these guys that like have to travel, we talk about, it'd be cool to be famous. That's a lot of traveling, I'm sure. Playing show, like, be careful what you wish for kind of thing, man. These guys work, right?
A show a night.
So
Sometimes.
we're talking about, so did you see the Motley Crue documentary on Netflix?
No, I haven't seen that.
I don't know how. Well, I think some of them actually have died and got revived, according to the documentary and Wikipedia.
I mean, drugs take you a long way.
But
in
these
that
guys
industry.
were wild, bro. Like, insane, man. And then that guy, the lead singer, killed that guy. You ever heard about that? So he was driving in his car, whatever sports car he had, and I think it was a Torino or something. I can't remember now. But he had the drummer from Hanoi Rocks. This is another 80s band. They're pretty good though, an English band. But anyway, had him in the passenger seat. They just literally drove like half a mile to the. They ran out of booze at their party. Probably could have walked. They said that's how close it was.
Oh,
but he took his sports car and anyway he lost control, hit a couple cars in the next lane, killed the guy. He got out with a bunch of just minor scratches. But in the movie it was kind of weird, dude. It like freaked me out a little bit. Because I had a friend die when I was young in a car crash, and the scene was just if you haven't watched it, you need to watch it. The scene was actually a very good scene, very surreal scene. Like Vince Neil, which was the lead singer, was so out of it. He thought that the guy, and he even tells the story too, because I'm like, cross-referencing these things, making sure that I'm getting my facts right,
Yeah.
that I'm not, because sometimes movies elaborate and stuff, but he said that's basically what happened is same thing in the movie, that when it hit him, when the car crashed, he didn't know where he was at. and he thought that his friend was just like asleep. Like he didn't even see anything. And in the movie, it kind of like goes a little more, like I said, elaborates on it and stuff like that, and talk about how he saw Christmas lights and it was Christmas. He heard his friend talking to him and stuff. And then when he finally came to, you know, like everything started slowing down and all the concussion or whatever like went away. He didn't even realize it happened until they actually got him in the ambulance. Like, you know, and then he started realizing like this is real, you know, type thing. Then he got off, man. Didn't do any jail time. I think he got pulled over after that too, for drinking and driving.
See, celebrities get special treatment.
Oh, his money, you know, obviously. He probably paid millions and millions of dollars, you know, to get out, you know.
It's crazy. When
and I think the people that he hit, though, of course that guy died, but other people that he hit that weren't even in the car with him, I think they got like brain damage or something, you know, that like it was bad. And then he ended up doing like a commercial for drinking and driving, like you know,
PSA
promoting it or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And it was the craziest thing, dude. The '80s were crazy times, dude. Because you think about it, dude, that was like everything was big in the '80s, right? Like, because the people were talking about Elvis, so the parents from Elvis in that generation, which was after the war, so economy and stuff was, you know, getting good. I mean, obviously, like, it wasn't that good in the '70s, but
color TV is looking good.
You know,
music is
MTV
changing.
Everything is getting
weird.
Bigger and more money. You know, you get the technology started coming into play. Obviously, the technology era was in the '80s, the beginning of it anyway, to the public.
Yeah.
So, but you know, that was a crazy time. And if you look at all those bands like Motley Crue and like Def Leppard and who else was out there?
Those hair bands like
all
Van Halen.
Well, Van Halen was a little bit before their time. They were in the late '70s, mid '70s. But these were
Poison.
more like Poison. Yeah, they were glam rocks, what they like to call them.
Yeah.
Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
Bon Jovi. Rat was a big one. Yeah. Round and round. Yeah.
Bret Hart.
Bret Michaels.
Bret
Hart.
Michaels.
Wait, hey, don't get the sharpshooter involved in this now. So the hit.
Sorry, I get my
That's
wrestling.
a whole nother topic
my
right there. It's
wrestling.
talking about '90s wrestling.
Yeah, 90s wrestling.
90s was a good time though too, man. 90s
was.
had some damn good music because they fucking squashed the '80s hair metal scene, son. When Nirvana came on the scene, dude.
Oh yeah.
They fucking smashed them, dude.
Oh yeah, man. That's
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that first album like it was yesterday, man. I didn't realize it came out in '92 because the first time I ever heard it was '94. I didn't realize that it came out then. But what's crazy about that is I was talking with my friend the other day, and when Nirvana came out with Smells Like Teen Spirit, what's the other band? Chris Cornell's band, Soundgarden. They had that song Outshined, and I think it came out like right around the same time. But his producer, I think it's ironic that it's called Outshined. He didn't write it because of this either. That his producer told him not to release that song as a single until whoever his manager or somebody, until Nirvana released theirs for Smells Like Teen Spirit, because it was going to outshine and nobody would know who the band, you know, the song was and everything. So he kind of waited, you know, till like a couple years later or whatever. I thought that was a smart decision because that was probably, to me, I always know. Well, that and Black Hole Sun. How can you forget that fucking video, dude?
Oh God,
I
yeah.
remember sitting in my grandparents' house watching MTV and that damn video come on and being like, "What the fuck is that, man?"
Yeah, that was
I
pretty.
even took acid.
It was pretty trippy as a kid, but it made me dislike the song because I realized how repetitive it is, and I was just like, when I hear Black Hole Sun, I'm over it.
Yeah, I know. It was the most famous song. I didn't really care. I mean, it wasn't my
fire.
favorite song.
But the video was very attention grabbing because you see it like, whoa.
Well, any song that has a video like that, like you said, it's kind of, and they played it a lot too. You know, I think it's probably one of their more famous songs.
Yeah, but going back to Nirvana, you know, I'm a fan of them because they really stuck their nose, their nose at the system. You know.
Oh, they were anarchy all the way, dude.
Yeah, they embodied punk rock in a way that got to Generation X.
I think they even took punk rock even further, you know, because there was punk rock before
Yeah,
You know, they're like a subgenre of punk rock almost.
They called it grunge.
Well, grunge, yeah.
It was grunge, but the way they acted.
A lot of punk influence.
Yeah, because the way they acted, my favorite thing I've seen, I think it was Top of the Pops. It's like a British music show. Back in the 90s, Nirvana was invited to be on Top of the Pops. But the contracts say that you cannot play the music live. It's pre-recorded. And
yes, I knew Super Bowl.
Kurt Cobain just didn't believe in that. Why? He's an artist. He's got to play his instrument. So, as a joke, they decided to just obviously fake play their instrument. So you see Kurt Cobain putting his hand just like this up and down the fret and just like waving his arm over the strings. You know, and Dave Grohl in the back, he's just like faking to play the drums.
I don't think I've seen that before.
And it's just so ridiculous to see them do that. And I think it's, you know, here we are now entertainers. That they're playing along with that. So they look robots. And so at the time, when people were able to see this on MTV and VH1, or new channels that finally show all this music information, it really, you know, stuck a middle finger to the industry and said, we know we're puppets. We wrote a song about it, you know, but if you're going to play into it, we'll play into it as well.
And that song, man, is just an absolute, just classic song, you know, and I never thought, like, I would say that either. Like, you hear it now on classic rock radio, you know. Like, I remember when it was just a pop song, you know, like, when we were listening to that stuff in 6th grade, even though it was only, like, you know, 6 years ago when that thing came out. And I think that's when he died in 94, right? Yeah, that's when he died. 94. That was crazy, too. Good Lord.
Yeah, I mean, still, it's one of those mysteries that will go down for a long time on what really happened.
Nobody will ever know.
No one ever knows except the parties involved. But some people want to blame Courtney Love, and others say it was Kurt Cobain himself.
Either way,
yeah, it's just unfortunate. I mean,
either way,
he was an artist. We lost early, but
it did give us the Foo Fighters, though.
Without him being out of the way, we would not have Dave Grohl stepping up and being a part of over like 7 bands.
Oh, dude, he's probably one of the most influential musicians of our generation.
Well, and he's been inducted into the Hall of Fame twice.
No shit.
For Nirvana and
the Foo Fighters. And then he played drums a little while for Queens of the Stone Age.
He started them up.
And then he played drums for this band called Chickenfoot.
Yep.
And that was with Sammy Hagar.
I think
John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin.
I think he played a set with Megadeth.
Really?
Yeah.
He loves Megadeth.
Yeah, I mean, he's incredible as an artist, but I don't think we would have seen his light shine as bright as it did without Kurt Cobain stepping aside.
Well, exactly, and you know, obviously that's unfortunate as can be, but you know, things happen for a reason too. You know, and I mean, who knows? Think about, as bad as we feel about it, think about how crazy they feel. They're the ones that lived it. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, Dave Grohl is probably, I mean, I don't know if he thinks about it. I'm sure he does think about it. You know, he's sitting in his house sometimes by himself, like, damn, man, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Right? You know, I mean,
no,
it's crazy the way things happen, you know?
Well, and what's crazy even about Dave Grohl, so his first album, The Color and the Shape, the Foo Fighters' first album, Color and Shape,
dude.
He played every instrument on that album.
That's right.
He made that album. And what happened was he got popular. And he had a tour. He's like, oh, shit.
He's a band
I need to find guys who can play with this,
I watched
this
that
music.
documentary and it said that.
And so Dave Grohl had to get a band who could play Foo Fighters music just to go on tour. And that's how good he is, because he was able to layer everything on top of it to make it a sound that was so unique. And then he just knows how to churn out hits. He's found that sweet spot where he can put one hit on a record, but then sell all the records.
Yeah.
Because that's the game you play when you have those multi-record deals. You know, you have to just pump them out. Look at Weird Al. Weird Al had to pump out 14 records before he was free of his contract. And he finally did it. 2017, I believe, was the year. And then he can go on YouTube and his website and self-promote his own music because he's such a phenomenon. No one matches him.
Weird Al was like how do you become popular? I mean, I guess how I say how, I can see how because I mean it's funny as hell, and I remember buying a VHS. It was show my age, a VHS of Weird Al and his like hits in like Amish Paradise or something. It was like one of the big ones, you know, that he had. But like I mean, who would have thought that somebody? I guess what I'm saying, who would have thought that somebody would become famous for like spoof covers,
parroting music.
Yeah. I mean, he had some funny ones too, you know, some damn good ones.
Oh yeah, and I think it was just the novelty at the time, plus the fact that he was quirky. He played an accordion.
Yeah, he's funny looking. And curly hair.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that goes together, but in reality, like the talent that he has, because if you look at like his music videos, they're shot for shot exactly like the original music videos. He gives so much homage to
that
these
is true.
artists.
I remember because that the gangster Amish Paradise, they had the guy back there sweating. He was sweating bullets just like the black guy.
Same guy.
But he was like actually sweat, like it was pouring sweat.
Same thing with the Chili Peppers. Give It Away Now.
Oh yeah.
They got the same people twirling the tassels.
Speaking of the Chili Peppers, dude, that was another badass band, like iconic band, like that had their own just sound, dude. Like if you hear them, I mean. And I think that you know that to me that comes from having somebody like, well, I don't know, man. I have to say I think all that band is just incredible. Even though I'm not like the biggest Chili Pepper fan, but like I say it comes from having somebody like Flea in the band. But if you look at even their guitar player, I can't even remember his name now. But those guys, badass. And Anthony Kiedis or whatever his name is, yeah, he's the lead singer. And then they went through a couple members too. Like I think one of their members died that played the guitar. God dang, John Frusciante, that was his name. That's the guitar player. But you know, they've had a lot of ups and downs. Like a lot of them were addicted to heroin, and you know, I don't think Flea was, but I think the guitar player was. I know, like I said, I think the drummer was, because when eventually they ended up getting Chad Smith, which is the guy that looks like Will Ferrell. He was not the original drummer. And John Frusciante, I think that's his name, is not the original guitar player. So that he was like a prodigy, I think. I think that was him. Yeah, so their other guitar player died from heroin, and then they get him, John Frusciante, because he sounds just like him, so he didn't have to rechange their sound or whatever. It's like, I mean, it's perfect, you know. Then he gets hooked on heroin. I think Anthony Kiedis was hooked on heroin. That's a pitch drug, dude. That is a fucking. When I say that, I mean like it's a fucking. That's
hard to.
Good Lord, dude. I mean. I heard this comedian say one time, he was like, I'm going to wait till the last day. Last day I'm shooting that shit up. Because I've heard it's good. I know that's sad, but...
Yeah.
I'm not making lightly of it, but you know, we are comedians.
Yeah, but I mean... drugs will kill you. If you're not careful. It's a slippery slope. But without drugs, we don't have music.
Oh, God, yeah.
Without the drugs, we don't have music. Go all the way back to Elvis.
I'm going to have my own...
I think I need to be propped up by drugs, but guess what? He was burning love all over us.
Well, man, I think my mom said she went to a Hank Williams Jr. concert one time, and they literally had to prop him up. They had to set something up on his stool so this man would not fall over. Oh, I bet that was just an absolutely horrible show.
Oh, man.
And the same thing about talking about going back to Motley Crue, man. Like, dude, they showed it. He would just like chug. They would get so fucking. They were on heroin too. A lot of those guys were too. They would just get so fucked up, dude. That was what it was back then, man. That was the party scene, dude.
Oh,
it was all
man.
about having. I was honestly, I'm embarrassed to admit this actually, but Houston has a great radio station called 95.7, and they always play like wild genre of music. You know what I mean? You might hear. I can't even. It's all over the place. But I heard a Poison song, and it was called Nothing But a Good Time. And that was what it was back then, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we all like to have good times, but
Party.
I'm just saying that was what they're
living.
What you know, if you look at like compared them to a band like the Foo Fighters, and I'm sure the Foo Fighters like to party, but like they don't project that. You know what I mean? Like these guys sang songs about partying, and I can't remember what else they had. What Every Rose Has Its Thorn, but they had to have a ballad, dude, back then, or you weren't fucking 80s. So
yeah, but I mean, because it would seem so out of character. Think of if you hear about Clapton trashing a hotel room.
Exactly. No, he
Yeah.
was way too tripped out to trash hotel room.
Elton
But
John.
now he had drug problems, drinking problems, I think too.
They all have addiction problems.
Yeah.
But they cope with it through the art. Because you either die from it or you live through it.
You know, what else was a good '90s band? We're talking. Radiohead.
Radiohead.
When we're talking about how Elvis wrote that song "Hung Hung a Burning Love" and he hated it, dude. That was like famous. The Radiohead did that. They did that with "Creep." That was like a fucking joke song.
Oh, okay.
And it happened to be their favorite song. I mean, happened to be the most popular song. So every time these guys have to play it live, they're like, I mean, I don't know about every time, but they're like, fuck.
Begrudgingly have to
And
play.
they had such great songs. Like they did, dude. They had, I mean, what was that? Small Plastic Trees or Fake Plastic Trees was a good one. Don't Leave Me High and Dry was a good one. They had a couple other good songs on their album. But I wasn't a huge Radiohead fan because they were kind of dreary for me, you know? They're a little dreary.
What would you call the genre?
I don't even
Was
know.
it like electronic? Almost?
I wouldn't be able to tell you, man.
Because I know a few of the songs, but only because they play them on the radio.
It's like alternative rock music.
Yeah,
is what I would call it.
I mean, yeah, it was branded with the alternative rock, but you can't put your finger on what it is. It's just so unique, though.
It's very unique.
You know, it almost like what Beck did. Beck, it wasn't rap, but it wasn't.
Yeah, that was weird music, you know.
Yeah, it was just weird music.
Same thing with Promise too, right? You know, like
Yeah.
I mean, I know Promise is obviously rock, but still, you didn't. That is. I remember my buddy's mom said. Well, my buddy said his mom walked in the room, and you know, mom's always criticizing some music and shit, and she didn't know what to say, and she just looked at him and goes, "That's just weird." I don't even know what to say about that. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, Tommy the Cat. Come on, that is.
Yeah.
That's a strange song, man. I mean, My Name is Bud. Jesus Christ, dude. First time I ever heard that, I was like, what in the... I liked it, but I was like, what in the fuck is this?
Yeah.
What a character, man. But no, like you said, it's hard to genreize some of that stuff because of how... It's almost like pricing a piece of obscure land or obscure property. It's like, how the fuck do you get that price? You know what I mean? Because there's nothing like it.
Right.
You have to. It's almost like coming up with it off the top of your head, you know, because it's almost like what's that worth to you? But not to get too much into that, but still, though, like with these bands like that, I totally get it. You know, it's like, how do you even put that into a genre? I mean, you could say alternative rock, but when you start breaking that down too, it's like, what kind of alternative rock, you know?
Yeah. Well, look, as an art, think of it this way: no one realized that Van Gogh was worth anything until after he died. Picasso learned his fame before he died. You know, his work was noted as being great while he was still alive. Andy Warhol hit notoriety when he was young, and he lived it up.
I wrote about that guy.
And he he leaned into it.
He's a designer,
and
right?
got fucking weird as hell. Yeah. But he lived in the New York scene during the 80s when punk rock was in fashion as taboo.
Yeah.
He was just doing all the taboos because as an artist, that's what you do. So, and different artists get to see their legacy in different ways.
Yeah.
If you become an artist that, you know, you struggle your entire career thinking everything I'm making is trash, and yet people make millions of dollars off of it after you're dead, and
Yeah.
you never realize that. That sucks for you in your lifetime, right? Whereas if you're the Andy Warhol and you're given fame while you're in the process of creating, it's a different kind of stress, actually, because you have to, like, be on it.
Keep up with that.
Keep
persona,
going, yeah. Because if you're not weird enough, they'll write you off and they'll find someone else to replace you.
Well, imagine, like, Michael Jackson's life. I mean, seriously, I bet that
No.
dude, like, put yourself in that guy's shoes for 1 second. Like, he probably couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, he was robbed of a childhood, and
Oh,
he
yeah.
made a workaholic. But because of that work ethic, gave us some of the greatest fucking music in his later years. Because
The
as
guy
an
was
adult,
just, like,
he was on it. But as a child, he was tortured.
well, and I still feel like that a lot of that stuff, I mean, obviously, that never goes away from me either, too. You know what I mean? Like,
It builds you.
But I'm just saying, like, he was always going to be stigmatized by that. I mean, that's not how you treat a goddamn kid. You know what I mean? Like, that's same thing with that guy. They call him Robo QB Marinovich. You know, his dad from a young age. That's what we're talking about. You know, talent being overrated, right? You know, his dad from a young age, like, stretched his legs in the crib and put little footballs in there. Like, he was made to play a quarterback, right? You know what I mean?
Sure.
But he got to the point to where he figured out the real world. He's like, man, fuck, I just want to eat a cheeseburger one time. You know what I mean? Like, just to taste it at least, you know?
Yeah.
So what did he do? When he got free of whatever, you know, he rebelled. You know, and he lived the life, and he took it to the extreme, right? You know what I mean? Because he didn't get to live any of that as a kid, you know. So same thing with Michael Jackson. Not to say that he took it to the extreme, but he definitely became a very weird fucker, though. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, I mean, that's true with him a lot. You know, I'm reading this book right now. It's called "Talent is Overrated."
That's what we were talking about, yeah.
And it talks about these girls that were raised to be chess players by their father, and it's so crazy because the father, from the beginning, he theorized that he could train anyone to be a great chess player, and he put an ad out for a wife to be, a mother to be, to raise their children in this environment where they excel at chess. And then at the age of 4, their first daughter started training in chess, and then her siblings behind her trained in chess, and all 3 of them went on to do some amazing things in chess because he just worked at them at a young age and just kept with that work ethic, and they went through it and they did it, and then by the time they hit 20, they went off and did their own things in life because it's not sustainable for them to do that forever.
Well, let's take Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, well, you don't get paid like in chess probably like you do in boxing.
Right.
But let's take Floyd Mayweather Jr., for example. From a young age, you know, his dad, his uncle, his brother, whoever, all were boxers, dude. Like, he grew up in the gym, you know what I mean?
Right.
He's a product of his environment. But from a little kid, he was taught how to do that, you know? And, I mean, he's one of those ones who took his, you know, I'm sure he's talented as hell, too, as well. But we're talking about, like, talent being overrated. He didn't know anything else. He grew up, you know, same thing. I read a book on Tom by not Dale Carnegie, Zig Ziglar, and he talks about that too. And there's this Japanese, I think, or Chinese, either one, but he's a music teacher, and these parents would hire him to turn their kids into prodigies, basically. And from 2 weeks old, he would have them listening to classical music over and over again. Put records back then, I guess, but nowadays it'd be the iPod. Put the iPod on repeat and put it on Beethoven, Bach, whatever, whoever else. That's the only ones I really know.
Right.
That are, you know, just classical musicians in general, all of them, just so he can hear it over and over and over again. And they said by the time he's, you know, still in the crib. I don't know how old that is, you know, but young, you know, 6, 7 months, a year old. They'll put a little mini violin just so he can go get a handle on it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, just to feel it. You know, it probably doesn't even play, but just to mess around with it. They said when he's 4, the kid is 4, the mother will go to music lessons until the kid's 8. So the kid never even plays until he's 8. His mom has to go with her and watch him for 4 years. Then, though, by the time he's 10, they said he's already playing freaking masterpieces.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, he's been exposed to it for so long in various capacities.
He probably doesn't know anything else.
God, I hope that mom wants to learn that instrument, because it seems like a burden. Like, begrudgingly learn the violin.
Well,
this is for you.
You're talking about Asian culture, dude. It is absolutely completely different from ours, dude.
True.
Just like
they think long term.
They think long term. They think they're more obviously like
legacy.
Exactly, focus. Like lineage. Yeah, they're respectful. So first time I ever watched a fight from Japan, it freaked me out a little bit because you can hear everything. everything is quiet. You can hear the ring. I loved it. Like, it's not like every now and again you'll hear somebody's coach go, da da, you know, or something,
Yeah,
you know, just
but
yell out
otherwise it's
something.
just watching.
But yeah, it's just people watching, and every now and again they'll clap when somebody passes the guard or something, you know, which was cool to me. But like in America, like I said, you go to a UFC event, you got
Open collar.
you got fucking, you know, the damn redneck next door yelling out jab jab kick at all the whole time, you know, or something stupid.
Yeah.
Which is totally, you know, like I said, to me, the Japanese culture is just so respectful in that aspect, you know, of we're here, we're all in this moment of time together. Shut the fuck up and let's not be disrespectful to our neighbor because they might want to watch the thing in peace and quiet, you know.
Let's experience it
I
together.
don't want you fucking yelling drunk, you know, over me. I can't even experience it, you know. But now that again being said, there is nothing like a freaking football game or something like that where a crowd is just absolutely deafening, you know what I mean? It's pretty crazy,
Right.
you know.
Well, and there's some places where the crowd can be deafening, and it just, you know, Seattle.
Yeah,
with the
they call it
Seahawks.
12 man, yeah.
12 man.
I mean, most
Texas A&M, 12 man.
Yeah.
You know, it really depends on where you are and how rabid your fan base is.
Well, and I feel like that most of that would be like, well, I say college football just because like it's a bigger crowd a lot of times, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
You got the college kids out there yelling shit, you know. I'm just saying it's just a different type of crowd
Oh, yeah,
at NFL
yeah.
than it is at college games.
The atmosphere.
Yeah. But shit, you want to wrap this thing up, dude?
Yeah, dude.
It's getting kind of late here. That was good, man. I think we covered a pretty good bit of stuff. Mostly music on this one.
Got a lot of music, man.
Yeah, so it's still good though. Music's good. So yeah, so let's cheers to. I don't have any water left, but cheers. Yeah. Until next time, have a good one. Go Blues, go Astros, roll Tide.
Take care.
Shut her up.